And welcome everybody to a New Year's presentation. And you probably are ready to let's just get on with the rest of our lives after the holidays. Put fireworks up there and all. It's like, no, let's get back to normal. Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining us. Kristen, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah, I officially got all of the Christmas decorations down today. It is 2026 and time to move on.
All right. Hold on just a second. I had our YouTube channel up and I was getting a double echo from the significant delay between live and when it hits YouTube. All right. Well, we have a very interesting presentation, and I have to tell you that I am super excited about what I kind of stumbled across yesterday prepping for this. Those of you on our Facebook group, welcome. Glad to have you. I have to manually check the comments there. So if you're, and then Facebook on top of that makes it where I can't see all the comments, the more that come in. So if you'd like to be able to chat with us through this, hop over to Fun Astrology YouTube channel, and it's live there at the top, and you can comment. If you want to just sit back and watch, then the Facebook group is a great place to do that. So glad you're there. We stick it up there just so that people are aware that we're doing this. And then if you want, you can come over to YouTube and interact with us. So one of the things that I was curious right off the bat here is okay, so you've listened to the podcast. Obviously, you wouldn't be here if you hadn't. You follow astrology. You follow high timeline stuff. You probably have watched other podcasts, etc. I'd love for some of you to put in the chat what you're anticipating for this coming year. Good year? Challenging year? You say, didn't you read the news since Saturday morning, Thomas? It's like, is that our beginning? Is that foretelling of things? We're going to talk about that here in a second. But if you don't mind, just drop in the chat what you are thinking this year might look like, because I'd like to weave it into our conversation and get your thoughts on where you are with everything. You'll see where I think things are and where Kristen thinks things are, but I'd love to know where you are heading or thinking. Also, this is wide open. We want it to be very interactive, so don't hesitate. Keep in mind the ones that I can see without going on there and looking for them are on the YouTube channel. Those of you on the Fun Astrology channel, I'll try to keep check on there periodically, but hop over to YouTube if you'd like to interact with us. All right, we're going to talk about three things here. I have some images from the 2026 natal chart, January 1st, 12 midnight, New York. And then we're going to just show some of the activity in January, February, and March. We're not going to break it all down, but we're going to at least show you the lay of the land. And then wrap up with a little bit of this Saturn and Neptune and Aries. Before we launch in, Kristen, do you have any thoughts so far?
I mean, it looks like it's going to be an interesting year, and the January, February, March is the start of that. We have a lot going on with eclipse season, and there's so much to talk about. So it's a good thing to focus on.
Okay. All right. What's your general take on the year?
It's a mixed bag. There's a lot of aspects that could pose problems, but there are months that have really great aspects. I think that there can be some challenges, but there are saving graces along the way.
Do you think it's going to be, as someone says, a shake and bake kind of year? Like when we get through with it, we will think that we've never been through anything like that before? Or do you think it'll be more of a transitional year of, I don't know, less intense?
I don't know about less intense, but I could see this maybe being the ramping up Maybe it's not a full shakeup, but we start to see where that is heading. There are quite a few transiting planets that are changing signs. And so this is only just the beginning of their stories, but this is where we see where they lead.
Okay. All right. And from the Merriman work, we're zooming in on the first 3 months of this year. The Merriman work takes a look at this all the way to 2030, 2032, which is the full scope of the Great Pyramid that we've been talking about. And even Andre Barbeau, and we've been mentioning that, and we're going to close with the quote again tonight about this being an epic period. That whole context is about a 4 to 5 year run, not just what we're seeing right now. So we can't isolate something even like what has happened this weekend as a template for anything. It's just one thing that fits right into the narrative of the New Year's Eve chart like you can't even believe, but it certainly is not going to portend the whole year. All right, now I always have to just do some little adjusting on this. All right, there we go. Mixed bag. Good. Thank you. Glad you're here. Not really sure what to expect. There's a chance some good things, maybe a lot to do with where you are and what's going on with your individual lives. Yes, absolutely. Live your highest timeline, right? With all of this, we have choice, and that's exactly right. Change, change, and more change. All right. I love that. And change would be really good in this context, wouldn't it? Melissa's over on the Facebook channel. She says hello to everybody. And fresh from she was sending some pictures of her Florida vacation. All right, let's jump into this. The first thing I wanted to do was some things on this natal chart from New Year's Eve. And I have some notes that I'm going to be referring to here on the iPad because I really had it come together yesterday prepping. I mean, it really felt good. It clicked. There was just a lot of aha. And now my iPad doesn't want to open up. Wouldn't you know? There we go. So I captured it to the point because I wanted to be sure to get across some of these key points as we go through this. So you can see the key themes that are in this New Year's Eve chart. So let's just go through here. First of all, and then I'll show you what we're looking at. So first of all, that one at the top, Saturn and Neptune are still in Pisces. Now remember, we're not looking at a transiting chart where we're going to move this forward. This is, at least for the United States and our listeners concerned, the official kind of recognized moment of 2026. So I think that, and nothing would change really, even from the East Coast to the West Coast, but the ascendant would change. But the structure of this chart is what it is. So Saturn and Neptune are still in Pisces. We're going to talk about that. This is an interesting one. So Libra rules the chart, and it's in a square aspect to Venus. So Venus, the ruler of Libra, is in a square to Venus. Now that happens when you have an ascendant square to anything. That can happen. That's probably would say not even uncommon, but how does it fit into this year? Another one is Jupiter is in its sign of exaltation. That means it's like this. Jupiter in Cancer is like this, a great big smiley face. All right. So we have that. How does that fit in? The other thing you notice down here, these are what are called the personal planets. So that's Mars, the Sun, there's Venus, and there's Mercury. What's interacting with those? And we'll talk about that. The other one that got really clear when Kristen and I did Wednesday's video, and I have this without all the clutter on it, but this formation right here, and this, well, whoops, over to here. This mouse can get a little, I'm not too good with it anyway. But those are quincunxes, and we'll talk about those because those are scratchy aspects. And then we have the nodes of the moon, the north node and the south node, and those are in this aspect to the moon. A square. It's called the bending of the nodes, and we'll talk about that. And then we have an image of, you see a lot more blue in there than red, so we'll show you that too. We'll go back to this to start. So Saturn and Neptune still in Pisces. Let's take on this first point up here. Saturn and Neptune still in Pisces. One thing about Pisces, there are 3 signs on this chart that reflect split or duality or more than one thing that you have to consider. One is Gemini, one is Sagittarius, the other is Pisces. So right there with Pisces, we have to think, well, we have a split of this year. You say, I thought we were moving from Pisces into Aries, January 26th, Neptune leaves. Oh, no. Well, we're still going to drag some Pisces into 2026. And we have the split dynamic also of Saturn and Neptune. These are as 2 of different energies as you can get. Kristen, why don't you elaborate on that?
I totally agree. They are so different when it comes to boundaries and responsibilities. That's where Saturn lies. And Neptune is about idealism and what is not graspable and fog. And so they are just opposite in their definitions. And so to have them together and in the side of Pisces, where Neptune is strong, there is a dissolvableness of the responsibilities and, the breakdown before we rebuild.
I want to make sure to stay on top of these, the comments that folks are giving us here. Heidi is saying, although all through this year, we might have some really in-our-face stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I think we're all ready for it, too. I mean, everybody who has commented so far has said some kind of something is going to be different. And I think that's it's a 1 year in numerology. If you add all the 2026, you get 10, and then you get 1. So that also is Aries. That's 0 Aries. That's new beginnings. That's new initiations. Exactly. Thanks, Melissa. Check our Facebook folks and see if there's anything else in there. I'm just trying to keep an eye if anybody tries to comment. But seriously, if you want to be a part of this, come over to the Facebook group. It's just easier for us to find it. So there's, so Pisces, we've talked about this a lot, Kristen and I have on the podcasts, of this spiritual renewal that's taken place in the world since Neptune went into Pisces around 2012. And right now I land on YouTube and I'm seeing that there are these revivals that are happening all over Europe. These Christian revivals. It's like, wow. And then also we're reading our fair share of drugs and alcohol and suicides and accidental death. So there's your dynamic. There is one of your splits, especially focused on Neptune and Pisces, because Neptune rules Pisces. So that kind of energy, I think, is going to be continuing. There's going to be confusion for some, Neptune. There's going to be powerful clarity and direction for others because they're going to be tuning into that Saturnian thing, or they've already have that groundedness. So I think you're going to see both. And there again, we get to choose. So recognizing that, then we can come back to this as the year unfolds and we can choose which camp we want to be in. Do we want to be in the confused camp, or do we want to use Neptune as so powerful in Pisces for intuition? So we stay guided by intuition through this. We stay structured and sound with our feet on the ground by using our intuition. Now, the other thing, obviously, is that time is going to go on, and this chart will move, because on January 26th, Neptune goes into Aries, and then 3 weeks later, I think it's February 16th, the 13th, that Saturn goes into Aries, and then on February 20th, they conjoin right at 0 degrees in a few minutes. So this is everything that we've been talking about. It's new beginnings. It's the world point. So whatever's going to happen, we think is like, everybody around the world right now is talking about what happened Saturday morning. And this is the energy of thrust and initiation and conflict and aggression and war. Kristen, why don't you pick up with your thoughts on Saturn and Neptune moving in here?
Ever since Saturn moved into Pisces, I was wondering what was going to happen on the water. I think that we've seen issues with trade. We've seen bridges fall. There has been many issues with things that are happening. And now it's the bombing of drug boats. And there has been different things that have been happening. And so now that transition into Aries takes a more aggressive point as we look to Mars now. And so that is going to be a interesting transition. But for the New Year's chart, we still have them in Pisces. And so there can be a continuation of some of those things that we've already kind of seen going on for the last year and a half.
Gosh, I love your point about the water, because Neptune is a water planet in a water sign. Saturn is an earth planet in a water sign. So look at this. This is just wild. So this thing that happened by surprise about 3 or 4 hours before the peak of the full moon on Saturday morning, by the way, was, these full moons and the moon wobble, even Mercury retrograde, these have all been powerful here lately. So we would expect that to continue. And we do have a moon wobble coming up that we'll show you the dates on, and a Mercury retrograde. So those are coming. Neptune rules drugs. And that's, of course, the front line of what this was about. But it also rules liquids of all kinds, including oil. And, we have this Venus square to Venus, and Uranus is in Taurus. That's money. And Pluto is about other people's money. So there's the real root of this, and what really is the root of this is the petrodollar, using U.S. dollars to buy and sell oil is what's really at stake here on this thing. So the whole thing, and then, of course, Uranus about surprises. So we've been talking about this Great Pyramid, and everything about it happened on Saturday morning. I mean, like, you could literally have written that script from this chart if you wanted to. It's just amazing how loud this really is. So, as far as correlation with the Great Pyramid, okay, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys what I came across over the weekend. But basically, on the positive, this is like being willing to take things to the limit of what you're able to stretch. See how far you can go to remove obstacles. And the reminder of this is that Saturn and Neptune only come together every 39 years. So for a lot of us, there's a stark reality that we will either be gone or elderly by the time this happens again. So I want to impress how urgent that is that this thing is coming in February. Boom, and then we'll be on the other side of it. And yes, there will be a ripple tail effect for sure. But here's what dawned on me as I was putting this together, and I have this at the end, but a lot of people will have to go before we get there. So I wanted to mention this throughout, really, because Kristen and I talked this morning, and we're going to make this a theme of the podcast for this year. I am so excited about it. When I walked this back, so the last time that these two did this and came together, the last time was 1989. And that was, of course, when Ronald Reagan stood at the Berlin Wall and he said the famous line that he ad-libbed that his speechwriters didn't want him to say, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." And that led to the next 3 to 5 years of the end of communism and all new nations rising up that were around the Baltic Sea, those Baltic nations that broke off from Soviet Russia. All right, let's hop back to the one before that, was 1952, and that was the death of Joseph Stalin. And it was also the birth time of Vladimir Putin, the current, of course, leader of Russia.
And Xi Jinping as well.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And there were some other conflicts. There was the Mau Mau conflict in Africa, and there was one other one. I have them in those notes. So there were other conflicts. And that's one of the themes that we've talked about it. These planets are in the pyramid. Here, the last time it was there was the American and French Revolution. Here, the last time this was here was the Civil War. And this has been in Gemini, which it will be in next year, for all of the major conflicts, World War II, Civil War, and Revolutionary War. All right? So we've talked about that. Will history repeat? I don't know. They weren't all together like this. They weren't in this positive kite kind of trine, top of the kite construction of positive aspects. That's what Barbeau was seeing. That's what Ray Merriman sees. He calls it Kat Powell, one of his students, and now she does a lot of work with Ray in the training programs and does graphics and this kind of thing. She called this the Aries vortex. So, these legs are like, woo, woo, woo. The energy's swirling between them. So we have that. But then when you walk this back one more time, you get 1917, and that was the Bolshevik Revolution. And that was basically things were getting a lot like they are now in the world. And Vladimir Lenin, if you've ever been to Red Square, you've been to Lenin's tomb, if it was open. I got to see it. I was there 3 times right after the wall came down. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. That he came and said, "We'll fix it, everybody. We'll fix it. We'll give property to everyone, and you'll all have food, and we'll all have income. I'll fix it for you." And you see what happened. So the Soviet rule was bracketed by Saturn and Neptune conjoining. 1917, it began. 1989, it ended. And in the middle of that, Andrei Barbeau was born in the early 1900s. He died in 2019, and he was 98. So figure he was born in 1920, I guess, or 21. He grew up with full awareness of the Soviet Empire. It was there when he was born, and he, in 1955, so he would have been in his 40s, was looking at this aspect in 1989. And he saw Saturn as the structure of the Soviet Union. And he predicted in 1955 that at the next aspect of Saturn and Neptune, that the Soviet Union would crumble. That's pretty amazing. So the wall came down. Barbeau saw it. And here we have this aspect again. And what I'm realizing and that urgency that I'm feeling is we have a window this year where we can tear down that wall. Mr. You, Mrs. You, Ms. You, tear down that wall. Because we will be able to use the energy of this thing that a lot of people are not going to be recognizing. I promise you that we can tear down barriers in our own lives, and the wall, like that Berlin Wall that was a restriction of freedom, what's holding you back? We're going to have the ability to tear down that wall this year. Kristen, I still get chills. I'm just like, wow.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of astrology through these next few months that you can really work with. And tearing down the wall is the perfect way to put it.
Melissa's asking what happened Saturday. Now, she, in all fairness, not only kudos for not reading the news, but she was traveling, I think. So the United States, under the approval, the initiation of Donald Trump with apparently months of preparation, invaded Venezuela with helicopters in the wee hours of the morning before the full moon and took Nicolas Maduro and his wife from their bedroom, literally, woke them up, and they are now in prison in New York City to be arraigned on Monday morning. Yeah. How far are we willing to go? Well, that's the whole thing. That's the whole message right there. So it's a total package to me. It's transformation, it's destroying structures, it's new spiritual heights of revival and renewal. It's new technologies of being and doing. And like Fred's thing, we don't do so that we can have, so that we can be. We be who we are. We be. And from that flows our actions. And from that package flows what we are. It's a different way of looking at it. So new technologies of being, I think. And then we can take advantage of that Neptunian bzzzt to kind of jolt some things loose. I'm excited about that. I really am. I am super excited about that. Okay, let me clean up my little graphic mess over here, and then we'll go back and talk about this for just a second. So Venus, square Venus. Kristen, what are your thoughts on this one?
It is an interesting dynamic having the square from the ascendant in the ruler, kind of have this actionable tension between them. But we are talking Venus in Capricorn too. So what tension has been built? What tension is building? Now we have this Libra rising, and so there is a call to balance within this. And, what have we built that is no longer giving us balance? What needs to be changed?
Yeah, that's good. One thing I'm seeing from this is you think about Venus. What do you think about? Rattle me off some things of Venus that come to your mind.
Just Venus is values, beauty, but Venus in Capricorn has so much more structure than some of the other placements. So there is a lot more of a love for responsibility within values, a love for, that luxury in a way. I feel like Venus in Capricorn loves the things that are known to be greater than others. They're built sturdy, they're built good, they'll last a long time.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really good blend of those two energies that are going on. When I think of Venus, obviously you think of all things lovely, beautiful, perfect. You think of, I think of a beautifully decorated house, good smells, pretty furniture, pretty decorations, pretty, beautiful. And that's how Venus wants to appear. That's how Venus wants to show up. And the ascendant is all about showing up, how it looks in the world. So it wants to look beautiful. It wants to look pretty and lovely. However, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. And I even got the old Astrology Bible out to look at some of the characteristics again of these planets because I love her verbiage. Saturn can be dirty and ugly and black and odorous. And that's not Venus. So there's a big conflict there. So there could be a conflict in ourselves of how we want to look, how we want to be, versus what we know is still inside. There's still that stuff, and it's still, it comes back, tear down this wall. Because Venus, from the ascendant point this year, will lead us to those things that look good, that feel good, the pretty, the beautiful. And we can identify and pull up that stuff. So here's another of these same repeating themes. And when you get repeating themes in astrology, you know you're onto something. And this is big because the ascendant is the ruler of the chart. So there's another theme that we can put together for this year is making our lives beautiful from within. Identify that stuff that needs to come out. And that's powerful. That should really get you excited. You're going to have the energy from the sky supporting you if you take it on. You have to do the work, but the sky will be there to help. All right, let's talk about real quick with Jupiter up here at the midheaven. We're going to be talking about crabs now, Kristen.
Yeah, yep. The sign of the crab, Cancer. As a Cancer sun, I appreciate that. But Jupiter in Cancer is a great placement. This is this exalted placement. This is where Jupiter functions at its best. Now, for this chart, it is still retrograde, so there is a little bit of internal call within that, but it does turn direct, early this year. But for the natal chart for 26, that Jupiter is still working from within.
And then what about, this is kind of interesting because these are the 4 angular points in the chart. These are the action points. And the way that this midnight New Year's Eve chart showed up, we have a fairly early ascendant here at 9 degrees. So we're in early stages of cardinal, which is action and aggressive. Talk about cardinal for a second, especially when it shows up on these 4 points like this.
You're right. It is the action points. This is the initiator. It's the starting point. And to have it on the angles is a initiation energy. We're moving into a 1 year as well, if you want to bring numerology into it. And that has cardinal energy that kind of correlates. Now, having it be in the 10th house is a different sort of angular than the 4th, just because the 4th can be internal and what's inside, where the 10th is what's exposed. How does the world see us? What does Jupiter mean when we're being seen by other people?
Those are great thoughts. There is this, get busy, do it to this chart because of these positions. So, you know what a soft-shelled crab is? Mm-hmm. It's a crab that has shed its shell and it doesn't have the new one. Mm-hmm. Crabs outgrow, so they have their shell and the crab, the inside, grows and starts to push on the boundaries of that shell. And that's when it realizes that it has to get rid of the shell and grow a new one. Mm-hmm. And during that time when the new one is still soft, it's hardening at that point, and the crab is vulnerable then. It's vulnerable to attack. So to me, as I saw this Jupiter and Cancer and the crab, and I thought about, here's this pattern again, because the chart is telling us it's supporting us to shed that smaller constraint that we've lived in and to grow into a bigger space. Oh, it's like, so we have this theme repeating with Saturn and Neptune, tear down this wall. Venus, let's amplify the beauty in our lives. Let's bring that out and shine that out like our ascendant. We can use that chart this year to shine out beautiful things from within. Venus at the ascendant. And now here is the sign of the crab saying it's okay to be a little bit vulnerable, let some stuff go, use this energy of transformation to take on a bigger space for your spirituality, for your path, maybe even for your physical. You get a better job. Remember, Catherine Ponder put a group of people together in 1958 when there was a bad recession going on, and they said, we're not going to participate. So we can choose what we're going to do. So I saw that and I just was like, wow, I love that. Okay, let's roll through these other, I think we've, a lot of this we can kind of pick up the pace now. So this was the groundwork. That was like the major stuff. So now we have the personal planets down here. Now this is kind of unique because we have this big dominating theme in the chart. We've been talking about it all of 2025, the Great Pyramid. And this stays basically intact with all these planets lined up like they are, Pluto, Uranus on the sides, Saturn and Neptune. Now, once they do what they're doing in February, Saturn is going to pull on ahead and it will move on out of the way. But then it starts to make its own aspects. Venus or Jupiter will change signs in the summer to Leo. So a little bit of the structure will change after February, but basically what's left at the top of the pyramid will still be Neptune because it moves only a hair faster than Pluto. So I just think here that the chart is saying to us that this is this amazing time to use this energy to do this personal work because they're all stacked up. It's like this happens. It happens usually about once a year, but so it's not unusual. And then let's don't forget Mercury. Poor Mercury over here is paddling as fast as he can. Don't get out of breath there, Mercury. You'll make it. You'll be all right. We've looked ahead. We've seen the script. But this is just saying that this is a real opportune time for us to do this personal work. What do you think, Kristen?
Yeah, I agree. With Mars having a 2-year transit, it's common, but not super common. And to have it for the New Year's chart, there is so much personal growth, especially within that Capricorn house, wherever that falls for you, just because that is a major point to have all those personal planets be lined up. And that makes for a big week this coming week because all of those aspects are perfecting and we're creating all of those conjunctions in real time.
Yeah, that's true. So all of these become the same number throughout this next, over the 2 weeks. So one that I want to speak to because I have lived with it for a long time is Mars and the Sun. They are here in this natal chart 2 degrees apart. All right, that's a tight conjunction. That is together. And having lived with this, I can just tell you a few things to watch out for. And one is conflict, aggression, anger, and pent-up emotions. Now, we're going to drag that aspect all the way through the whole year. And that can be a lot of responses around us. So friends, family, people at work, people we encounter along the way. Everybody's going to be feeling this. This is here for all of us. One of the things that I learned about my Saturn and Mars and Sun together is the proper, healthy release of pent-up emotion. And that can be anything from feeling excessive physical energy, like, you're just wound up like that. It can be emotional energy where you just need to, I need to release this emotion. Sometimes it's a good cry. It can also be mental stress. Like it can build up, build up, build up. If you're working on a project, I've been working on this big project. It's just like, and I have to take a break. I kind of snapped last Saturday. I was like, I have got to set this thing aside. I can't keep working on it. And I did, and it was great. And it released the tension. And the other one that I'm going to mention, because it is very real, is sexual tension. And I'll just leave it at that. You can figure out if that is a factor for you. But things like exercise, walking, hiking, running, jogging, resting your mind, relaxing, meditating, doing yoga, doing the whole Zen thing, just taking some downtime, all of those things. And then, like I say, I think everybody needs to look at, because people overlook it and then it becomes a problem, is the sexual release, because these really can build up under this aspect. All right? Now, the other one that I wanted to mention here is the moon, because when you bring the moon into anything, you're talking about collective people. So we can just say that's all of us. It's all of the people in your lives. It's the country. It's the world. You can extend it on out. It's feminine energy, but it's also in this dual sign. So we're talking about split kinds of things. And it's in a square aspect to the line that always is in opposition, because the north node and south node of the moon are always opposite each other. And the way that you determine this was written in a Mountain Astrology article back in the 90s, a lady by the name of Kathy Allen. And it's still searchable online, but she talks about the bending of the nodes of the moon. And basically what you do is you start at the north node, and if the moon had been over here, then that would have been the first spot for the square as you are moving in a counterclockwise path, but that's not where it is. So we go all the way over. So the moon here is 270 degrees, almost all the way around from the north node. So therefore, it is considered the north bending of this T-square. And what that basically does is it puts it in kind of a north node kind of context. In other words, it's the out there expression, or it's a direct versus retrograde. Retrograde would be the placement over here. Direct would be over here. It's more of the outer expression. So, Kristen, I know you and I have talked about this quite a bit, but what are your thoughts as you've had time to reflect on this about the moon and that position square to the nodes?
There's a karmic pull to what the people will have to work through this year. And with the moon being in Gemini, I have a small inkling that it's probably information. But I think that this is an interesting dynamic. I know that going into February, we do have the eclipse that is on the moon for America's natal chart that is also square Uranus. And so I think that this is going to be a interesting time, a shakeup, a kind of, where do we go from here type of year.
Keep talking. I got my earpiece thing wrapped around my leg, and it's pulling it out of my ear. And I'm trying
when
to
we
fix it.
when we get to eclipse season, that is what the nodes determine when eclipses are. And so I think the eclipses are going to have some major power this year, especially with this T square that is in this initiation 2026 energy. And when we look at the nodes kind of in their shifting moments where the next few eclipses are going to dance between either being in Leo and Aquarius or Virgo and Pisces, there's a giving up and releasing as well as a creation. And we still have one more eclipse in Virgo in 27. So this is a while before we kind of give up that narrative. And so that dynamic is, still got some power for a while.
All right. One of the other, as we're talking about that divided sign, we can also look to the other side of the chart because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter and it is the opposite. So, as we're talking about some of those dualities of this and the challenges, we have a symbol of Gemini being ruled by Mercury, of the mind, the head, being in your head, your monkey mind, versus Sagittarius, which is a very spiritual sign, being a reflection of the soul. So here again, as we come into that conflict, we can always tune back into our heart for those answers. I want to jump ahead here to this chart. And I mentioned these quincunxes because this is also, I think, very important. So back to the moon, we've talked about that, but look, it's in this scratchy aspect to the sun. And when we talk about this from a mundane perspective, I've got my eye on this, and we'll see how this unfolds, but I just think that we could have quincunx is an aspect where the planets don't connect with each other. There's nothing in common. I think, what do you say, Kristen, that they don't see each other?
Yeah, they're blind to one another.
Blind to one another. Yeah. So for the year of the emotions and the people, and then of course the sun would be the country in pure mundane astrology. But yeah, it's like, I don't know, this one's going to be, we could feel divided in our own skin. Kind of goes back to this thing that we pointed out with Venus, down to Venus. It's just, there's this conflict between our emotions. It's the personal planets. And then the one between Mercury. You notice there's another one between Mercury and Uranus. And there's the mind, the monkey mind, conflict in the mind. So we'll be watching this and we'll be reporting on it through the podcasts too. But just tuck that one away, that there could be some mental challenges. And when it shows up, just realize, okay, so there's that energy. What do we do about it? Well, we go back into our all the other things that we've been talking about. I think are plenty sufficient, any one of them. We go back into that grounding of staying on our highest path, choosing our highest path, and working on tearing down these walls. So maybe it's just symbolic that there's a little bit of a wall there. Well, tear it down. Okay, then everybody else can struggle with it and you can move on. I'm not participating. I tore down my wall. Kristen put this on our webpage. This was great. This is an aspect chart from the Honeycomb Collective people.
Yeah, if you don't have a honeycomb, I highly suggest it.
If you're on your mailing list, from getting one, they sent this out now a couple of months in a row. We're not going to go through it all, but you can just see how there's this big pile up here in the middle and toward the end of January. So we're right here. We got a lot of stuff coming up, Kristen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those conjunctions in Capricorn are coming in fast. They'll be here this week. They're starting, and then they'll all move into Aquarius together and start making those conjunctions with Pluto. And by the end of it, they'll be making squares to Uranus, but that will be on the February list.
Now, we're going to show you those aspects here, but I stuck this in here because it came up and I thought, this is interesting. You're not going to be able to hear it, but it has the closed captions, so you can just read it. It's only like 30 seconds. This guy on the right is Ed Dowd, and he used to be with BlackRock. And you may have seen him online. He's taken several, he's online a lot talking about various things, financial and whatnot. Whoops, that was not the right thing to do. Okay. Well, maybe it is going to play. I heard it in my ear. We'll see. This was just interesting, I thought. And here is maybe one of those things on more of the shadow side, or those things that could shake us this year could be this. And when he says, think about that for a second, the guy goes, geez. But this is exactly, I mean, if this thing this weekend was exactly what the chart was showing, here is another exactly what this chart is showing. Because we've been saying for over a year that Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini is going to create a technological authoritarian control. And the other side of that is going to be the opposition to that technological authoritarian control. So there could be a lot of pushback to this. Yeah, the video, it didn't, the audio, I could play it, I think, but it takes too many settings to get it to turn around. What he was saying is that the only growth in the market this past year was basically companies that are building the digital prison. AI, all the various digital currencies that are coming. There's a lady that is out on the podcast circuit that is screaming basically that we are being led right straight toward digital currency. And the reason that she's doing what she's doing is her name is Catherine Fitts, Catherine with a C, Fitts, if you want to look her up. But she's talking about, she's saying, we're being led to a digital currency, and I don't want a digital currency for this very reason, the digital prison. And that is so Pluto in Aquarius. And the people saying, don't tell me what to do, don't control me. So this is going to be very interesting, something that will play out over the years ahead. But keep an eye on that. Here is kind of what that looks like that we just saw with all those conjunctions. We've just got a lot of stuff. I listed this out. You can screenshot it if you'd like. This is what Kristen and I will be covering on the podcast now, is all of this activity. One of the things that I think is obviously of note is we have all this conjunct Pluto toward the end of the month. There is one day that it's really wild. If you look at it on a grid, if your software has a grid capability, it's like all trines and sextiles. There's just this really powerful alignment of positivity that's in there. And then we have some aspects hitting the pyramid on the 17th. So, yeah, I mean, we're, let's see, we just had the full moon. And then Chiron went direct, so it's now forward motion. Really, I think the next, yeah, I mean, we got a lot of stuff this week, but that's some of what that looks like. It's going to be a busy month. And then we rolled into an eclipse here in February. See how busy January and February are? I mean, the main goal of this was just to let you know that, wow, we are really getting into some stuff on February 17th. So that's right before Saturn and Neptune conjoin. We have the solar eclipse. We have a moon wobble, and it will peak on February 27th. So if you back up 3 weeks from that, that's February 5th, 13th, and then it will tail out toward the first week of March. Uranus goes direct on February 3rd, so more bzzzt in the system than we've had already. I think Mercury in retrograde has been pretty bzzzt, don't you, Kristen?
Yeah, definitely.
It's like active little feller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hanging out with Mars for these retrogrades, and that can make it a little extra spicy.
Here are some squares to Uranus coming up. There's Saturn moving into Aries, and then, of course, the conjunction when they all hit. So what's your take on Mars? It really tails off. Well, let me just show you March. See, it really tails off. Jupiter goes direct. That'll be a big deal. And we have the second eclipse.
Mm-hmm.
Those eclipses are going to be interesting. We were talking about this earlier. Talk about the United States and then the president's chart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it will be an interesting eclipse season. Like we said, this new moon in Aquarius will be on the moon for the United States. It will also be on the descendant for Donald Trump. And that new moon is square to Uranus as well. And so this is some shakeup energy. And I totally agree that January and February do have a lot of energy. There's a lot of aspects with the fact that all the personal planets are traveling together, and they'll again start to make these aspects to one another, and then aspects to Pluto, and then as we go on, those aspects to Uranus. And then through March, eclipse season ends and it kind of tails off. But eclipse season for March is also the full moon. And so that's the releasing piece too. And so we have that creation energy that comes up in February, but the creation energy that has the eclipse energy that's tied to it. It's the major creations, but that comes before the releasing. And so what does the creation get you to a point that you then need to let go of things?
Howdy from Canada. Glad you're with us. Yeah, social media. Here's no to digital currency. Amen to that. And no tyrannical governments. It will be really interesting to see if people mobilize more against these things that. And I'll tell you one thing. We mentioned that Venezuela thing coming up on Friday. The Sun and Mars conjoin. We talked about that with all those personal planets down there. And the Sun and Mars come together on Friday. And then, here, I can just go back and show you. Back here to this one. So on Friday, the Sun and Mars will be together. And then on Saturday, they both oppose Jupiter directly. So this whole energy, you could back up 10 days from this coming Friday and Saturday. You could back up 10 days. So the middle of last week, we've been in this energy. So this attack happened not only on a full moon, but it happened with the Sun getting ready to conjoin Mars, which is a really tense aspect, and across from Jupiter. So the amplification of this could go quite south is one of the things. And I'm just watching, just watching to see what some of the reaction to this is going to be. But this was astrologically, in my opinion, not a great time for this, but we'll see how it all plays out. I have some personal thoughts, but I think that's just one of those areas that we all do, and we'll just keep it right there. We were going to talk about this, but I think we've done enough for tonight. The big thing from Saturn and Neptune is exactly what we talked about earlier, that when we had these aspects before, here was the start of the Soviet Union, and here was the end of the Soviet Union. So we have this opportunity through this energy, historically, to do what President Reagan said in 1989, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And we can tear down walls in our own life through this energy. It really is an incredible, we will not be here again for 40 years opportunity. And whatever's going on in the world around us doesn't matter as long as we're doing our internal work. And the magic, the miracle of this aspect that happens exactly on February 20th, so we are in it now. I would say when we get off of here, start working on it. Get your journal. Like, what walls can I work on tearing down? Because here's the promise of all of this. I mentioned Andre Barbeau. He was a brilliant French astrologer. He died in 2019 at the age of 98. He wrote this, and it was interpreted by Kate Johnson. And the reason I put this up here in this verbiage is because online there is some, if you search this up, they were saying he really didn't say this. Well, the problem with Andre Barbeau, some of his books are available on Amazon. I think he wrote like 50 books. Prolific writer, but they're all in French. And a lot of the French translation doesn't come over as Barbeau expressed it. And I don't understand that, because French is the one language that, even as an audiobook narrator, when French shows up, I'm like, oh no. Good, dig it up. And I have to listen to it 4 different ways, and I have to pick the best one, and I don't understand it. And I should get myself in a French class. Maybe that's what I'll work on for my wall. But Andre Barbeau, so the reason I put this up, Ray Merriman put this quote in the 2024 forecast book. And Ray does not do anything lightly. He's a double Capricorn. His sun and moon, he was a new moon baby, and his rising sign is Virgo. So do you not think that accuracy is important to him? It's amazing how he catches errors in things. And he would not have put this up. He also is very, very strict and rigid on proper attributions of astrological quotes. And I know if he didn't feel comfortable that this was not interpreted well, that he would not have put it in his almanac. I know that for sure. So let's take it for what Kate translated. The next conjunction of Saturn and Neptune in 2026 is centrally placed at the beginning of Aries and is in a triangular quartet of planets with a double sextile to trine between Uranus and Gemini and Pluto and Aquarius. That's the Great Pyramid. It is, Kristen, why don't you read the last line?
It is the most benefic configuration of the century, and its interplanetary partnership will work for the best in a splendid relaunch of civilization.
Does that choke you up a little bit?
I think we need it.
That is so beautiful. Read that one, the last line one more time. You read it beautifully.
It is the most benefic configuration of the century, and its interplanetary partnership will work for the best in a splendid relaunch of civilization.
Relaunch. Zero
Mm-hmm.
Aries. Saturn and Neptune. I had pulled some stuff on Neptune. Neptune, I went back and looked at Reinhold Ebertin, and it's, his stuff is dark anyway from the time that it was written. But his stuff on Saturn and Neptune was really dark. I mean, it's all about, oh, let's see, I've got to hear, like war and conflict, etc., limitation, control, structure, boundaries, discipline, wisdom, karma, hardship, responsibility, being a mentor. Determination is in there. That's the Saturn piece. Alfred Vitti talked about when he wrote about these diseases, sickness, chronic conditions, this kind of thing. So there's all this, that's more of that classical 100 years ago kind of interpretation of things. Barbeau comes along and looks at this, and he sees those trines and those sextiles, and he's like, no, this is a relaunch of civilization. Because that's the thing that Ray Merriman, my database I checked, it goes back to about 1200 BC for Astro Gold. Ray has one that goes back to, it goes back 4,000 years. So another 800 years or so back. And never has all of this come together in this formation, especially with these two planets at 0 degrees Aries. So it really is truly an amazing time. And that's what Barbeau was saying there. And that should be absolutely thrilling. Now, is that a 2026 statement? No. He said the next 4 years. So we're talking from now to 2030 will be the unfolding, or maybe the beginning or the launch. But we'll see what happens. Relaunch of civilization. What will have to happen in our world for civilization to be relaunched? I don't know, but that's an interesting thought.
Mm-hmm.
What would it take? What will we have to do? Tear down this wall. What wall? What walls? There's a lot of them out there. So the one thing the world is going to need is people who have their act together and their head on their shoulders and are, I'll say, preaching a message of that we can raise our own vibration through this. And if that's what Barbeau was talking about, and I think it is, then bring it on.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that when we look at what the expectation for life and how that has kind of changed over the years, where religion once told us how to live, and now we have the expectation of the white picket fence, and what does that mean for society? And now we're changing what that looks like. It's no longer the push towards, needing everything. We now want to be more fulfilled and living for our own highest timeline, not for other people's.
Yeah. Yeah. Jack popped in over on Facebook. Hey, Jack. Good to see you in there. If you guys have any final thoughts, drop them into the chat there, and we'll kind of wrap this up. After we've been through all of that, Kristen, what do you think now about 2026?
I think it's definitely going to be a interesting year, but overall, I'm excited for the change, and I think that there's going to be lots of great astrology to work with, even through the challenges.
You had some good ones over the holidays on Tuesday and Thursday. You had all the good ones. Maybe they'll land like that in 2026. And hasn't Kristen been doing a great job on Tuesdays and Thursdays? I really appreciate her and working with her, and she just makes it really easy to have her as a part of this. And so thank you. And I do hope that everybody enjoys what you put together for us as much as I do.
I love doing it. It's been so fun.
All right. Well, you guys have a great rest of this evening, and I really appreciate you hanging in there with us and being on. And let's see. Yeah. So thank you. And we will do this again. I think Kristen and I have talked about this. Like, what kind of frequency are you thinking?
I think, as astrology comes up that we want to talk about, I know we had kind of said Neptune and Aries, which comes up again this month, but I think looking at maybe some of the astrology for summer and then again in fall, or, even eclipse season as that kind of comes up. So we'll just kind of see where the astrology takes us, I guess.
All right. That's always a good way to play it. Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate you, and Happy New Year to everyone. And let's go make it a great 2026. And the theme that you're going to hear a lot from us on the podcast is looking for those astrological, let's see, yeah, astrological supplements to help us tear down the walls, because I think we've got a really good theme with that. And it was big in the astrology of this aspect, so we might as well play it in our own lives. So with that, thank you guys very much for being here, and we will see you on the podcasts. Now, Kristen, you've got to say much love, talk sooner. I won't be able to sleep tonight.
Much love. Talk soon.
Boom.